going to do a case study of the 2014 National Climate Assessment website. I call it Assessing the 2014 National Climate Assessment website. If you want to go to the URL and kind of poke around as I'm going through it, feel free to. A little introduction. My name is April Sides. I'm a Drupal web developer. I work for, the people who pay my check is North Carolina State University, and it's the Cooperative Institute for Climate and Satellites, North Carolina. I work as a part of the National Climate Assessment Technical Support Unit, which is housed at the National Climatic Data Center in the Federal Building in Asheville. And we are part of NOAA. My Drupal ID is week before next, and I'm also a member of the Drupal user group who put this camp on. And I'm going to go through an overview of the project team, the requirements, goals, and outcomes, a little bit about why we chose Drupal, a designer review, key modules, and a community contribution module that I have a sandbox project for, and then we can have any questions at the end. So the site was developed for the U.S. Global Change Research Program, which is a confederation of the research arms of 13 federal departments and agencies, which carry out research and develop and maintain capabilities that support the nation's response to global change. USGCRP has a legal mandate to conduct the National Climate Assessment every 4 years. So the National Climate Assessment summarizes the impacts of climate change on the United States now and in the future. A team of more than 300 experts, guided by a 60-member federal advisory committee, produced the report, which was extensively reviewed by the public and experts, including federal agencies and a panel of the National Academy of Sciences. So on May 6th of this year, they released, the one on the left is a cover for the full report, which the PDF is 841 pages, so it was just a PDF. And the highlights version on the right, there were a select number printed, which basically just highlighted the most important things of the full report. And the website was released on the same day. The project team, the website design was done by Habitat 7. They're out of Ottawa, Canada. The development was done here in Asheville for the National Climate Assessment Technical Support Unit. And Forum 1 did the hosting of the site. Along with, they did a redesign of globalchange.gov, which is USGCRP's main website at the same time. The requirements. So at the time of we began developing the website, the document was 1,400 pages of raw content that included references and one single column, and any of the background data that needed to be visualized was all in there. So all the elements, so the entire 1,400 page report and background data needed to be visualized. All elements of the site, including graphics, text, and photos, needed to be shareable as separate items. The entire system needed to be responsive and accessible across browsers and devices, and the design needed to cater to both general public and scientists. So the goals, we wanted to have an innovative design strategy. So it was based on several storytelling principles, kind of followed a snowfall design. You can Google that, snowfall with New York Times, and it's kind of this design framework that the New York Times used and was pretty cool. And this was a first for a large-scale government science report. Typically, your government site follows the same design as other government sites. We had a mobile-first strategy. The site was designed to be completely responsive and to function across all devices, including smartphones, tablets, and computers. And we wanted to have social media integration. Every piece of content in the report has its own URL, Facebook and Twitter handle, so that information can be extracted and shared on social media, email, or listservs. So the outcomes, the White House launched the site, and John Podesta made a comment that he wanted to thank the web development team for building the dynamic website, or the Dynamite website that goes along with this report. Who says we can't build a great website in the White House? That was sort of after a healthcare website kind of crashed. The launch day statistics, and these numbers may include some of the globalchange.gov's launch, the main website's launch as well. But we had 137,700 unique users visited the site. A third of that traffic was from referral sites, including the New York Times, the whitehouse.gov, foxnews.com, and slate.com. There were 39,000 sessions from social media, primarily from Facebook and Twitter. The average session duration was 2 minutes and 40 seconds. A fifth of the visitors were on mobile. The bounce rate was 40%, and 6,000 images were downloaded, and 1,500 report-related PDFs were downloaded, because we had versions of the full report, the highlights document, and then each chapter was separated into its own downloadable PDF. And some media reaction. There was an article on NBC News, and they mentioned, the result is a lot more engaging than a PDF file or a stack of papers. Yes, it's still a lot of content to digest, but if the government, or really any organization, wants people to actually read the report it puts out, this could be a good way to prevent people from having their eyes instantly glaze over. And we had some social media reactions. Responsive Design tweeted that the site for the National Climate Assessment is up with a powerful message wrapped in a striking responsive design. Annie Rose Strasser, who is a senior editor of Think Progress, said, for those who doubted the government's design ability after Obamacare site, just take a look at the climate assessment. And then Doug Van, who's around here somewhere, said yet another federal government win for Drupal as the White House launches National Climate Assessment. So why Drupal? Well, the development team is familiar with Drupal. You have such an access to core and contributed modules and a strong Drupal development community. The system itself is flexible, extendable, scalable. As a content management system, we had lots of content, and it had a very easily themable design. So to just sort of step through the site a little bit. So Habitat 7 designed the site and provided functional static demo pages, and I created a custom theme to sort of break apart their demo pages into pieces that I could dynamically generate from Drupal. And it also, by using the custom theme and using lots of template files, it made it a lot easier for the designers to then make changes as we were hitting to the deadline. This is the homepage. I made a specific homepage content type just to make sure that any of my changes to anything else would not mess with the homepage. So if we click on, so we have the highlights on the left and the full report on the right. So we were able to take both of those PDF documents and put them into web content. If we clicked on explore highlights on the right or on the left, it would take you to a publication landing page content type. So the right, on these circles on the right, I don't know if this will show up, there we go. These right here are generated by entity references, so it's built on sections. So you have like a splash section at the top, and then each section under that are each entity references. And so I was able to tap into the entity reference content and then create little anchor links for the right navigation. Each section has share links below that. So we have a global menu link here on the left. These are the two top level global menu links for the highlights in the report. These links at the top here are also generated from the global menu object. And so are these right here, these icons. Everything pulls from the menu. And this is another view of the global menu. So basically, I put all the links for the navigation of the site into one menu in Drupal, and then I can display it in various ways depending on where on the page it's showing, or if you clicked on a different section, it would show those links. We can kind of look at an active version at the end of the presentation. So if you go to a particular section, which this is the Southeast and Caribbean, this was based on a chapter. You can see that it's in the report, and it's got the report navigation pieces here. These are drop-down menus. It has its own splash section with a background video. and it has the share links on the right. And if you scroll down, the top navigation disappears and you get this new sort of chapter navigation. It has access to the global menu, and it has links to the key messages which appear as sort of sectional elements through the page. As a download chapter link for that particular, you can download the PDF version of this chapter. These authors right here are also entity references, and we can talk about that a little bit in a minute. But this is a section displaying as an introduction section. I used a lot of display mode and templates to make sure the design looked proper in different locations. And then at the bottom of each of these chapter pages, or these section explore pages, there's a next button that takes you to the next link in the menu object, and it pulls the image for that piece of content and puts it in the background, as well as collecting all the references. As you go through the content, it builds sort of a list of references, and then when the page is finished, it's finished going through all those, it outputs them at the bottom. So some of the key modules that were used in this project, bibliography module was heavily used just to manage the references. We had lots and lots and lots of references. So in the process of the authors creating this document, they used EndNote to manage those references. And they used Word to do most of their content creation and collaboration. So EndNote has the ability to allow you to insert the citations into Word, and it kind of gives you some code that you can use to, well, it drops in whatever code you want it to show. So we actually kind of did some hacking with EndNote and put in a unique identifier, because EndNote's primary identifier would change if you added a new record. Entity reference was very important to this project. We used, so in building a section explore page, we kind of start out with a splash section. So each bit of content on the page that is stacked is its own node. And so we have a field for a splash section because that one needs to be rendered differently from the others. It is displayed as a splash section display mode. And then we have an introduction section. So it's a section content type, but it's displayed as an introduction section display mode. A narrative page content is then after that, and it's displayed as a section display mode. And then we have a statement content type, and it's displayed in a section display mode. So we had lots of template files, but it really allowed the designers to know that where they were changing information, it was going to only affect a certain type of content, and it was accessible for them to be able to access it and make those changes a lot easier. Simple module that we used was file force download. It actually forces links to files to automatically download instead of opening a new window. That was, just kind of a simple, cool part. We used Search API. It allowed us to control the indexing a little more. This site was actually also indexed in Apache Solr separately for the global search of globalchange.gov's main site. So you can select either site, their site, or the assessment website, and look for content in either or. With Search API, you get search views, which allows you to modify your search results page. So we were able to add a lot of filtering on here. I've actually grouped the regions, sectors, and response strategies to pull content from both the highlights and the full report, because everything was given a taxonomy term that kept the outline, so you knew what was in highlights, what was in the report. But since there were similar features, like there were similar regions between the two, they became one option in the drop-down, and it would pull both results from highlights and the full report.
Quick question.
Yeah.
On the previous slide, how did you get the facets to be dropped down from that one advanced button in that one there? Is that a module, or did you do that on the theme layer?
It's done on the theme layer because the designers basically, it was big because they the designers were doing JavaScript as well. And so they needed to just be able to do things. And so I was just like, I'm not going to worry about putting breakpoints into a Drupal breakpoints module. We're just going to do it all in the theme layer so that we can get it done in time.
So those facets, blocks, region.
I mean, it's just the filters, the exposed filters in the view, and then they've just styled them and arranged them how they wanted to. And then I just basically duplicated the main search results into just show graphics, because we wanted to be able to pare it down that close. We also used View's infinite scroll, so it allows you to, as you're scrolling through the search results in particular, you can see there's 3 little icon dots at the bottom, and then they will fill in with the results. That just means that they don't have to click next or see like many pages of results. The menu token module is kind of cool because in the menu, in Drupal menu, you can't add links to non-page content. And so I had a particular issue where things like the overview or like the sub-items of the highlights document or the full report, they don't have pages, they had sections that were a part of the publication landing page. So we're able to use site URL and then add in that anchor tag so we could make this overview link up here scroll down to the overview section, and you can see that it's dropped down a section. It allowed me to keep those things in the menu structure so that I could keep everything together. As far as community contributions, I created a node asset module, but it's still a sandbox project. I wanted to be able to embed the figures, the interactive figures, key messages, photos, tables, etc., into content so that they would have a consistent design of placement. There would be one place to edit the content and it would affect wherever that content was shown. I wanted to have the option to view that content as standalone because in our initial designs we were talking about you would click on this link and it would take you to a place where it would show you that figure and then it would show you the metadata related to that figure. And so I needed to be able to use those kind of node-like things. I wanted the graphics and everything to be nodes and not an asset. I found the asset module and just basically re-engineered it to use node content types when I wanted it to. So I would have a content type like a graphic, and it would have settings to enable to check that it was going to be available as a node asset, and then you can select an icon that would show up in the WYSIWYG editor. In the display modes area, you can select what display modes should be available when you place it in CK editor, and also choose a default. So the default for this one would be the small node asset. And then within CK editor, you can add these buttons. And so the first one is the search. And these 3, you could actually create the asset right in this window and then place it when it's saved. And when you click the search, it basically brings up a filter. You can see previews if you click on the little preview icons beside each title. You can filter them, and then you can click add to editor and it will add it to the code. Once it's there, you can change the display mode. So if you decided you wanted it to show up as a large asset rather than a small node asset, you can make those changes, and you can edit the node here while you're editing. Let's say you're editing a narrative page and the graphic is in that page, you can still edit it there and it's going to save it as a part of that node, and then that content will be updated for this page as well. So along with this was an input filter. So this code here at the bottom, this node asset, :graphic, :number, this all right here is what it's putting into basically the body of your page. And the input filter will look for this markup and replace it with the node content rendering it as the template for the mode that you selected. And so it's looking for, in this one, a graphic content type with this node ID, it's going to display it using the small asset template. And I didn't really use alignment, but that was part of the asset module, so I kept it in there so it could be used if needed. And so for the graphic, these are some of the display modes that were set up. So it could be shown as a section. You could also modify the search results. We also had an embeddable feature, like if you go to, I think it's whitehouse.gov/climate-change, a few of the interactive graphics were embedded on that site, and so I just set it up to do that, and so I can control those templates. A large node asset, small node asset, and the views reviewer was just something embedded. But this list below are all the node asset related template files. So you've got graphics as large asset, graphics as search result, graphic as section, and it just covers them all. So if this code was entered in the body, it's showing a graphic as a small asset. And I also had another layer of using taxonomy terms of graphic type. So you have a content type called graphic, but you also have, it could be a figure, photo, or a table. And those would be determined in some code in the template to determine how it should be output. So this one is a small figure, and so it shows up kind of floating to the right of the page. This one was a photo, so it's still a graphic, but it's a photo, and it's showing as a large asset because it had a caption. And this was an interactive graphic, so it's a large asset, a graphic. And how I did the interactive graphics was, for my graphic type, I had basically a body field that you could put in your interactive code. And if no code existed, it would just show the large version of the image. So each one had a small version of the image, a large version of the image, both static, and then if there was code, it would show that first, and that was decided in the template file. And along with the node asset module, I added a node asset index so that I could tell where each of these assets was placed in content. This was very helpful because I created these links that would show you where a thing, a graphic, table, photo, narrative page was found in the site. So where it was supposed to be, basically where it was on a section explore page. So basically it just created a table in Drupal that just made ID matches so that you could do a search on that. Another way that I created these was by calling back to see where it was, if it could have been an entity reference instead of a node asset. So basically it would look to see if it had an entity reference or a node asset reference, and it would generate these links. So that was just kind of a quick run through. Questions?
So what does the node asset module get you that like media would?
Well, the primary reason that I picked it was I wanted the assets to be nodes. And in the media module, they are media assets, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But they're
So the primary reason was because in our initial designs and talking of how this site would function, we would say, okay, you see a graphic and content. You click on the graphic, and then you see the graphic, and you see the metadata. And so there were the kind of more intermediary steps. And so it's not like you see it in content, you click on the metadata link, and it just shows you the metadata. And then I wanted that to be able to kind of live and have an auto node title and have path auto so that they would have nice URLs to find them. And as you know, when people design things, they will change their mind, and they will change their mind at the last minute. Luckily, they didn't actually want it to live as separate content, so this media probably would have worked better. But at the time, I had to be ready to work with either way. So I just wanted to be more flexible with it. Yes?
Two questions and one comment. The comment first. This is incredible. That's an amazing website.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, a lot of hard work, clearly. So first question is, how long did this take for you particularly?
Okay.
It sounded like you were involved mostly with just Drupal.
Right. Okay, so we released the site in May We got Habitat 7 on board in October. And so before that, I had worked on the node asset module and worked loosely on organization of the content, but not to the scale of the actual site at the end. So, I mean, I would say that we technically started in October because we didn't have a final draft either, so we were just kind of working with the latest content. And so all the way up to the wire, it was being edited. It was being edited at the same time as the full report and the highlights document. So it was quite an accomplishment actually just to get it released the way that we did.
Okay, so 2 questions now.
Okay.
What were you using to bring the content in? Were people literally going to Node add?
Well, actually, Angel is here. We took the Word files, and he had a process where he would turn it into HTML and preserve a lot of the tbib tags that were already there, and just to kind of clean up the code. And then he was copying it in. But as you go through it, you have a graphic, and you have to create that as a separate node. And so it was a process to kind of create those separate nodes. It's probably something we could have done with a migrate process or something like that.
Was it an automated process?
It was not an automated process. But that was kind of just like to kind of make sure that the quality assurance as we're going through it, to make sure that what we were putting in there was right, because we didn't have a whole lot of time to make sure that if we had the automated testing as I went to the other session, if we had all those sorts of things in place, then it might have been a little easier.
Okay, so final question.
Okay.
Do you think you're going to be doing more reports in the future?
Yes, we will do more reports in the future. This particular assessment, the National Climate Assessment, is an every 4 years thing, which they're actually accepting nominations for authors at the end of the year to get started on the next one. There are also going to be other intermediary reports, and those are going to probably be somehow a part of globalchange.gov proper, and done on a smaller scale, but still trying to use some of the technology that we used for this report. Any other questions? I answered everything. All right, thank you.